Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF Microwave Update series. I'm Pat Hindle, and I'm here with my co-host Eric Keim. In this episode, we're going to cover our June Aerospace and Defense Electronics Supplement. The cover story is Improving SWaP-C with Multifunction Gradient Index Antennas, and it's written by Fortify and their partners. It's an overview of the utility of gradient index lenses with a focus on switch beam antenna systems. And the antennas are capable of wide-angle, high-directivity beam scanning over a wide instantaneous bandwidth, so check that out. Eric, what do we have for other technical articles?
Thanks, Pat. We have a tutorial from Microchip that does a nice job of looking at architectures and component considerations for SATCOM transceivers. It also gets into the various frequency bands of interest and some advantages and disadvantages of the popular orbits, along with some of the performance considerations for components going into space. So that'll be a handy reference if you're involved in that market. We also have an ERB, and that's our editorial review board reviewed article on a 2 to 18 gigahertz tapered valve feed structure for a microstrip log periodic dipole array antenna. And the article gets into the design, fabrication, and results for the dipole antenna array and the balun. And results look pretty good, so that's a good read. And our ERB process is a great way for primarily academic papers to be seen in the industry. So please keep those submissions coming in.
And we had 4 tech briefs in the supplement, a military-grade Omni antenna that is TAA compliant from Fairview Microwave. We had a high-purity signal source that operates to 54 gigahertz from Anapico, a solid-state TWTA replacement that operates from 2 to 8 gigahertz from Exodus Advanced Communications, and a DC to 67 gigahertz narrow-body RF edge launch connector from Samtech. So lots of tech briefs there. So we had a special guest join us today, Justin Boyle, Global Market Manager at Mini-Circuits, talked with me about the test and measurement industry and how Mini-Circuits is addressing these markets. Let's take a look at a clip from that now. So what challenges are your test and measurement customers currently facing?
Yeah, so their end markets, the test and measurement OEMs, their end markets are always evolving and innovating. And that's introducing new test requirements and new challenges for them. I'll highlight 3. These aren't probably new necessarily, but they're ongoing challenges that they face. One would be channel density. So whether this is driven by the technologies that are being introduced, such as massive MIMO, or perhaps direction finding, or it's simply to increase the efficiency of the test set by having more channels. To do that, it's putting cramming more things into the same space. So smaller footprints on the devices, or even integrating functionality into a device is of value there. Devices closer together, you worry about the isolation channel to channel, as well as the filtering becomes increasingly important. Then second one would be challenge would be bandwidth. The bandwidths, the instantaneous bandwidths continue to go wider, and the A to D technology is enabling a lot of that. So what that means for the RF components is they too have to support wider and wider bandwidths. You start thinking about IP2, in-band spurious becomes more critical. And then on the front end of these test equipment and measurement devices, if they're needing to cover a very broadband range, they might still need to put that data into chunks and split it up using filter banks, switch filter banks. And so that's a common topic in this space. And then the last thing I'll mention is dynamic range, right? So the test equipment needs to be much better than the device or the system it's testing, an order of magnitude or better sometimes. And so with that, there's always a push for lower noise devices, higher dynamic range devices, and then doing this over a much wider and wider bandwidth.
It was interesting to see how many areas of the test and measurement market that Mini-Circuits is involved in. It's quite a few. Turning to the news, there was big news during the IMS week. Honeywell announced that they have agreed to acquire CASE for a private equity firm Advent International for approximately $1.9 billion in an all-cash transaction. And this acquisition will enhance Honeywell's defense technology solutions, including new electromagnetic defense solutions for end-to-end RF signal management. And we knew this was only a matter of time before they were sold, as many of these OEMs are owned by equity firms now. So I think Mercury and Frontgrade could be next. We also saw that Ericsson released their 2024 June mobility report, and they report details 5G capabilities impacting service providers' fixed wireless access strategies through 2029. And Ericsson found that the global adoption of 5G technologies is accelerating, with projections indicating that nearly 5.6 billion 5G subscriptions by 2029, and this will make up 60% of all mobile subscriptions. And they noted that 4G subscriptions are forecast to decline to approximately 3 billion by 2029 as users transition to the 5G platform. And while they will be phasing out the 3G networks, and that's progressing faster than 2G, particularly in Europe where the spectrum is being repurposed. Eric, what did you see in the news?
Well, talking about Gs, one news item that caught my eye was the Alliance for Telecommunications Industry Solutions, ATIS, released their Next G Alliance report detailing spectrum needs for 6G. And the report is downloadable, and it actually gets into calculations for data rate requirements for different deployment and use case scenarios for different bands. There's also a companion report from the same people on 6G spectrum considerations that details in 65 pages all the different bands being considered, along with the regulations, considerations, and the expected spectrum roadmap. So if you're involved with or interested in 6G, those reports look worthwhile.
And for events, we recently attended IMS in Washington, D.C. The total attendance was 7,800, which is pretty good, slightly lower than San Diego, but a good number for Washington, D.C. I talked to many of the exhibitors. They told me that traffic was a little slower than last year, but the quality was excellent, so they're all very happy. And some of the trends I saw there were the digitization of RF as more direct conversion and digitally controlled systems are being developed. You see a lot more software-defined systems, and the integration of AI and ML is certainly growing. The other interesting thing I observed is there's a commercialization of glass in RF applications. 3D Glass has manufactured passive circuits for many of the companies in our industry, and including Spectrum Control, who's showing off a really high-performance filter there using that process. We also have ED2, who showed me some interesting devices and packaging technologies that they developed. And we've seen the Nokia Bell Labs use the glass substrate for their D-band radio, which has been around a couple years, but always on display because of the high frequency. And also Menlo Micro uses glass for their MEMS devices. So I really see that taking off. So next, we're looking forward to European Microwave Week in September in Paris. And that will feature the European Microwave Conference, the European Microwave Integrated Circuits Conference, and the European Radar Conference. Plus, they have the Automotive Forum, 6G Forum, and Defense, Security, and Space Forum, which we're involved in. And the paper quality at this event is excellent. And the incorporation of the automotive, defense, and space topics really set it apart from IMS. So be interesting to see how we can grow that event. Eric, what trends have you seen at IMS?
Thanks, Pat. I'll echo what you just said. And what was notable to me was I didn't really hear any new applications. Conferences, particularly IMS, are good places to hear about the next big thing. And we've heard about 5G and 6G and SATCOM and AI and ML, as you just mentioned at prior conferences. But this IMS seemed to be more about execution. Test and measurement companies have been talking about terahertz and sub-terahertz, 6 gigahertz, 6G frequencies, for a while. But I saw the rest of the ecosystem start to fill in. Companies were talking about everything from connectors to cables to components and subsystems in the several hundred gigahertz range and terahertz range. And I guess if you think about it, that's the way it should happen. A new application emerges and the supply chain has to develop the nuts and bolts of that application. The other thing that was apparent to me is we, or maybe it's just me, tend to think about the outputs of AI and ML. But based on what companies were showing, there are a tremendous amount of electronics and interconnects and boards and components required to make AI work. So it's more than just a processor opportunity. And that wraps up this episode. Our sponsor is Mini Circuits. Mini Circuits is a global leader in the design, manufacture, and distribution of RF and microwave components and integrated assemblies with more than 10,000 active models. Remember, as a member of the industry, a subscription to Microwave Journal is free, so please visit our site and subscribe today if you're not already a reader. Thanks for watching this episode, and please join us next time for another Frequency Matters.